and welcome back to Popversations. And today we are going to talk about the new Hellraiser movie that started streaming on Hulu just a few weeks ago. We did watch that.
Yeah.
Yep, we got some feelings. We got some stuff.
Start off with things that are positive because,
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy to get into the negatives right off rip. Like most people
especially when you're doing like your own very personal opinion on it and what you would have wanted to see. But there's so many like cool aspects of this movie. Like I really liked the box and how it looked, and that they were doing the different configurations, and it looked really cool.
I like how they tried to make different Cenobites, but we'll get into like why our true feelings about that. But I did like how they made an attempt and they tried to get creative with it. I liked how when the world shifted, it was like you were in the labyrinth and like you were in
the
sort of that
walls
world.
just opening, and you feel like
nice.
it could happen anywhere, and they
it was
could
kind
come
of
from anywhere.
It was kind of an ode to the older ones because that happens often, like especially in Hellraiser 2. Like they're in that world, they go and you see like Leviathan in the center of the labyrinth, which I thought was great. I think that cinematography wise, it's beautiful.
It looked
it's a
really
nice
good.
movie. It's a very pretty movie to look at. I think the casting, Jamie Clayton as Pinhead was good.
I liked her voice.
I liked her voice. I do kind of like how they dug deeper into the lore of the box and gave people different desires and different tiers if they continued to do the configuration, and it was based off of what they wanted. Of course, you come to realize it's not all that it seems as far as reward. But
yeah, I like the main character. I think she was, and the part that I like is they kept that whole theme that they do in like 1, 2, and 3, where the people that are drawn to the box are very broken and in a lot of ways very weak people. Like there's something
they attempt character development, which is more than I can say for some of the other like previous sequels.
Yeah, they establish
however,
they establish what the person would want from them and
yes.
what they're going to use to manipulate them. And that's like the coolest thing about the Cenobites for me is it's very on that like that track of like what a lot of people view hell and like demons as, and like kind of like in Constantine, they're just like a whisper. They just push you, and they take what makes you the weakest and like twist it and try and like manipulate you. That's their power.
Yeah.
And they do show that pretty well in this. I think like when she's gonna throw the box in the river, and she's like, before you do that, like know that we could bring your brother back if you finish.
Right.
Get to the last configuration, and it stops her because that's all she wants, and they use like her moment, like her weakness, like against her.
But really, those are really all the positives on my end.
I think the part that's weakest for me in this is the way that they framed the story around the rich guy.
Oh, yeah.
And the very beginning of the movie, it feels like a completely different kind of movie. It's very eyes wide shut. It looks just like it to me. Even like the mansion itself, like it looks. I don't know if it's supposed to be an homage to it, but it didn't make me.
He's a Kubrick fan.
Well, it didn't make me feel like I was in the Hellraiser universe.
No, I gotta be honest. I didn't feel that at all until
the end.
The Cenobites showed up.
Until they start like getting into stuff, and like he's not. That guy's not an interesting character to me. I didn't care about him. I didn't want to see him.
Yeah.
Like, it was interesting that he's kind of pushing things along, whereas they would have stopped. Like, if they had the choice, and he kind of keeps it going. But even that is kind of weird, because that kind of is going against a lot of things that were set up in the other movies, where, like, he is the one pushing it along. I don't know. It's just, I thought that was a weird framework to make it around him.
It doesn't really
It felt like things were missing. Like, especially with the lady...
It doesn't work because the boyfriend is using an evil boyfriend, which, by the way, you can see that turn coming from a mile away. So it doesn't... It would be different if he was like calling to her from the house, knowing that she has the box, it would be different. If like she was pulled to that place like through him, then I would have gotten on board with it. But the fact that he's just using like the boyfriend as a pawn, it's so wishy-washy to me. It's very tropey too. It's like something that there's just missed opportunities. There were so many things that I've already seen before. We've already seen before be done, and I was really excited for this. And I by no means this is a bad movie. Like it's full of missed opportunities. I think is the best way to put it. Mainly Pinhead not having a whole lot of lines. Maybe they were going for a thing of like say less and be and sort of still intimidating and antagonizing, but I didn't really feel that way, and I thought that you could have given Jamie Clayton way more than 10 to 15 lines, and you don't need her to be Doug Bradley. I get why they don't want her to do the poetic monologue stuff. I totally understand that, but she needed more to work with.
And the way that they make movies nowadays, especially for streaming and stuff, you never know if there was more, and they cut it out. And I get that feeling with a lot of big movies nowadays, especially horror movies like Candyman, the new one. I felt like there were things missing, and like pieces that we didn't have, especially like with the woman that they meet in that like psych ward, that she said she handled that guy's estate and like closed out everything. It's like, no, you would have known that he was alive.
Right.
And you would have known that when you put away the box. So, like, I don't really understand what was going on there. Like, if she was really against him, like she said, like, disgusted with the whole thing that he was doing, which she was helping him with at that point. In the beginning, you know, like, then why did you keep the box? Why didn't you throw it away?
Also, why are they only focusing on, you know, like, when the box cuts you or whatever, why is it still only focus on the main character only? And like, isn't it supposed to be about like desire? Like, you know, like you say, like the characters are like broken. Like, maybe all the other characters aren't broken. We don't get to know a whole lot about them. Like, they all have issues.
Well,
but I just
it's not driven by that, is what I think what you're getting at. It's not driven by like her friend's weaknesses. It's not driven by that. Like, when you have the knife like coming out of the thing, it's like forcing people into it, which it kind of does in the other ones too. But like, I like the idea that it all starts because you have this thing and you're like, what is this? And they just kind of sit back and they're playing with it like she is, like in the playground and stuff. And that's what anybody would do. They'd be like, what is this thing? And start messing with it and things like that. But when you have the knife like straight up just sticking out of it, you're like, you're pushing the story forward in a way that is very like, well, we have to get there somehow. Like, we have to get to the end.
Which,
that
speaking
we want.
of the end, okay, I did forget to mention one thing I liked. I did like the end where you see him becoming a Cenobite. However, to me,
it was pretty mild.
Yeah, pretty mild, and that's the other thing too, is any of the Cenobites, they don't feel like pure torture. It doesn't look like real flesh. It looked like the costumes look kind of rubbery. And I know some people have like brought it up like when they've talked about it. And I know that they tried to get I watched like the behind the scenes and they're trying to glisten them up with like.
And sometimes this stuff just doesn't translate to film like you want it to.
There are shots like especially with Pinhead where it does look like flesh, but
because they're getting way closer on that.
Different lighting though, like when she first encounters the first friend, like when Pinhead first appears on screen, it was the first glance that I got, and I was like, it looked like... It
almost looks better in the blue light of when you're in their world. Just sometimes stuff you try it and it just doesn't work.
I love how they're trying to do their own thing.
That part was cool. They went away from that.
Appreciate that, but part of what made the original stuff kind of work and be like gripping is all of the Cenobites looked like they were still in torture and pain and like all the pleasure and stuff. It just, and like the leather and the BDSM aspect to it is, I think, what makes it so great. There's little of that with these, and the one with like the skin peeled up, it looked like bubble gum. Like it looked very, very
That
pink.
one was strange to me because it was almost like it was
trying to do an ode to the Pain Princess, like Angelique, like kind of with the skin peeled back, like on the head. I kind of felt like that might have been like a little bit of a nod, like a slight one. But she's the one that talks the most.
That's true.
She speaks.
She does.
She speaks the most. She's like the mouthpiece, which is fine if you want to like sort of give that responsibility to somebody else. But it's like, focus on Pinhead because you have so much talent there. And I know they're trying to make her into like she's just standing there for like 30 minutes in the movie, like in the background. It's just like, when she's outside the house and she's just like this, the whole time.
You're kind of like, you want him to do more things, and like the one...
They're supposed to be... They didn't feel like a threat. I guess that's what I'm getting... They didn't feel like a threat like they did back then.
Especially not towards the end.
Yeah.
Because that is also like the weaker part of the movie for me too, because... And it's like I said when we were watching, it's like, I've already seen 13 Ghosts.
Well, yeah.
Like, if I want to see a bunch of like entities trapped in a house and getting locked and unlocked and moving in this house that's like a puzzle, like, I've seen that already. Like, it's been done.
They did kind of rush to get to the end.
And that's the problem too, is like that one Cenobite that has like its head covered and it's just kind of going everywhere. I see what they're trying to do as like a rabid dog kind of thing, but it came off to me personally that it was just stupid.
Yeah.
And that's not really how I view Cenobites in general. Like, I see how they're trying to do something different there, but it just
silly.
didn't. Like, it looked silly. I think it looked
especially
almost
the
funny.
one that gets caught in the door.
That's the one.
Yeah,
and it looked funny to me.
It looked very comical.
And just the fact of like, the house like has its like thing on the outside keeping them out, but they never really explain what about it is keeping them out. Like, I see some
At
sparks.
least I got that in 13 Ghosts. At least it said, well, there's spells.
It's the spells, and it shows them like being blocked by it, and they light up.
It's
and
like
it's
a specific
thing.
Design, on the exterior that they're seeing where they're like, oh, can't under that.
Yeah, it's very specific, and I love like in that movie too. They take that panel and they use it like to protect themselves. Yeah. It's such a cool thing. But in this, I did see some sparks coming off the outside of the house at one point, so I don't know if it was just that it was electric, but they never explained that. Also, and I feel like there's part of it missing, because when she's in the house and she's looking at all his stuff and reading the plans, like there should have been not that I want everything explained to me, but there should have been a scene, because she gets kind of obsessed with it and he has to pull her away from it. And I thought that was an interesting thing that they could have explored more too, where she's like telling him, oh, he did this, and like explaining why he made this house. It like they kind of do, but again, I want to explain, why can't they go in? Why are they blocked by that? Why is that?
And why could they sacrifice a Cenobite and that counts as like a soul? And
that also made them seem very weak. I think it made,
because like their soul is like already like gone. Why did they count as a sacrifice?
Maybe it's just like when they come to our world, that's like their physical form, and then they're not gone. They're just not in that world anymore. But they don't explain that, and I shouldn't have to come up with that on my own.
They're trying to do this dynamic where she's conflicted until the very end, but they don't dive deep enough into it, because number one, she's like seeing all her friends like get tortured and killed. She knows that this is bad. She knows that the reward can't be good, and up until like the end she's like, do I bring my brother back? And then she sees like that vision of him that Pinhead shows her, and she's like, that's not real. And it's like, well, you kind of knew that like prior. Like, I don't know what you're getting in like that moment.
And that could be a problem too, of like reshooting things and shooting things out of order, and then having that you back yourself into a corner maybe.
So much better as a show. This is an example of something it's fine with all the changes that they made. I don't have a problem with that. I want to make that very clear, because I do think that there's something there. But this would have worked way better if they would have kept it.
A limited series.
Well, I thought
that's my favorite phrase.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was initially supposed to go to HBO Max, and HBO was supposed to make it an anthology show, kind of like a True Detective style. So like the next season, it'd be different people, different motivations, new Cenobites come in, it dives into the lore. It would have been best served trying to fit this into just under 2 hours and try and get us excited for a sequel because, spoiler, I'm not excited for a sequel, unfortunately. I wish that I was.
And when you look at it as a whole, you could look at this as they were setting a lot of things up for a sequel, which, to me, I really don't like when they do that, because then it takes away from the first movie. To me, it makes it really hard to rewatch, like want to rewatch the first movie. I don't
really feel inclined to rewatch this again. And the other thing too is, like, if you're gonna take 50 minutes to get to Pinhead, you need to make sure that your 50 minutes is super interesting the entire time. I'm gonna be honest, that like 25 of those 50 minutes, I'm straight bored. At least for half of it leading up to Pinhead. Then I kind of got back into it when she showed up, and then I fell right back into the I don't care. I don't like any of these characters. I don't even like the main character, although I think she did like a really good job, like performance. And there's parts of her character that are, I guess, like relatable and.
I watched a review of it, and they were saying like the plot of the movie was in the beginning that she had just come out of rehab and her boyfriend she met in rehab, and I don't remember them ever saying that or establishing that really.
Somebody says it. One of her friends says it in a piece of dialogue that they have with
I think it would have been, and this is just how I would have done it. I would have started like with him picking her up from rehab and like them having some sort of conversation like in that car ride, you know what I mean? Yeah. But they start it to where she's already been living with them for, it seems like, a period of time. Like she has some boxes that aren't unpacked, but like it's like she's been there for a little while. And I think that's kind of like because I think the whole tragedy of it that would make it even more interesting is that she just got out and she's already back to, you know, the old stuff and the old ways.
We totally forgot about this. Remember when you get to, like, she still did the whole entire configuration, and then she just tells Pinhead, well, I don't want anything. And Pinhead's like, alright.
It's like, you chose the lament configuration, and then it's like, okay, you're off the hook because it's just your inner torment. And it's like, that is the weirdest thing.
It was strange. And it, like I said, that's another thing where it's just like a little bit of a critique. It doesn't make the Cenobites look threatening.
If they would have said that...
Because the second time Pinhead comes after Kirsty, he goes, you're not making another deal with us like you did the first time.
I did like that.
You had something to give us in Frank, and the second movie she didn't have.
And they don't need to play by the rules per se. I think they play by the rules because it's fun to them. It's a game. Because if she had said, I don't choose anything, and then she said, no, what you're really choosing is the lament configuration, and then boom, she's a Cenobite. Because, no, you actually did choose something. That would be way better to me, and she's the one getting shown being made into one at the end. And I loved in Hellraiser 3, which is my favorite one that I've seen, because it had so much potential. Like, the execution of it was bad, but the whole idea of it is so, so cool. And that, like, her friend in that one, for one thing, when she's playing with the box, like, I think she cuts her finger on something else, and then the blood happens to spill over the box, which is cool. I like that idea a lot. And all that's doing is, like, making Pinhead, like, stronger, I think, in that one, in a way.
Because he still needs a number of sacrifices before he can get out of the...
But in that one, she becomes a Cenobite. And, like, she wanted to. And she's, like, you know, they use, like, her weakness.
Wait, the main character becomes a Cenobite?
No, her friend does, because she makes, like,
She
makes, like, a big deal about how she doesn't dream. And she says... Man, it's like this whole world I'm missing out on because everybody else dreams and I don't. And then when she's a Cenobite, she's like, oh, the dreams that I have now. And it's just like, it's so cool because she looks at her and she's like all sad because of what happened to her. But I think it would have been cool if, like, she sees her friends start to become, like, Cenobites, like, as the movie goes on. Like, that would be... Because I think they've already established that that's kind of what happens. And in Hellraiser 3, they make new Cenobites, like, when he kills all those people in that club. And that's what's, like, cool about it, is you're like, oh, man, they're just, like, growing the army kind of thing.
You're just going to reward the guy that's bitching and moaning about the thing that he has, like, in his chest.
That was so weird. I'm like, is he, like, their god now? Like,
I guess. Like, so you're just going to get... So you're like, okay, we'll take that away from you. And what you didn't want was... What did he choose? What was the... not pleasure. What did he choose?
He said,
serenity.
he's like, you chose pleasure, but you really wanted
Power, yeah. And I was like, okay, so like, and so he's the one that calls for the second audience. He's the puppet master, yeah. And then but his whole intention of getting you there is to like get rid of you, and then like just talk with Leviathan, and then I don't know.
It's a
weird.
whole side thing that we don't really need.
It's weird
because all they would have had to say was that he died, became whatever, like a Cenobite is gone.
Yes.
And they took him, and the house is abandoned, and she's being called to it, and seeing visions of it.
Yeah.
And then looks up and figures out where it is, and that's all you need to do. They didn't need him. That's why I thought it was so strange to frame the story that way when they get there on their own, kind of without him. She would have got there without the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Because she looked it up on her own. And then, you know what I mean? So she would have got there without
There was
it.
already mystery and like lore behind the whole thing, so.
Yeah, and that would have been interesting if they never showed like that opening scene, and then they get to the house and they start switching, like doing the switches and seeing that, oh my god, this house is just a big trap.
Right.
And it was to trap people in here. You didn't even need the first scene if you do that. Like, that's that thing of, like, they could have just shown it and not told us visually in that way and kind of bogged it down with stuff like that, as we didn't need it.
It would have been kind of interesting if you had, like, a Hell on Earth type scene where everyone at that party, you know, gets just absolutely destroyed. And then you get the gore, and then you get, like, oh, dang, like, these Cenobites ain't messing around, like, and it don't matter.
Just chains
it's
everywhere.
Like, just chains everywhere.
I did like how when the wires and stuff go on people, it's almost like stop motion.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a cool...
But see, that's
it gives
the other
it like
thing,
a vintage vibe to me.
The other Cenobites don't really get a time to shine. They don't, like... You know, and I would say that, I guess you could even argue in some of the... Like in the originals and some of the sequels that they don't get to really shine also, but like you like I said, missed opportunity.
It's just so weird to me too. Like they're standing outside the house and they're like, "Are they still there?" And it's like they're just standing there. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are we? Because it's like, oh, we could just stay in this house forever technically, and they never get us. It's like it's such a weird.
It's gonna be daylight soon. Are they gonna be out there in the daylight still?
I know it's so weird to me that they do that and. Yeah, just like...
It would have been cool if, you know, the Cenobites had completely morphed their world into the real world, so, like, outside, like, there's no escape. Like, so it could have been a thing of, like, yeah, you better stay in the house, because you come out here, this is the labyrinth, and this is my playground.
Oh, they do show that, but it's not until the very end.
They do, but they don't, like, make it clear that that's, like... What's really like if somebody were to go outside, it didn't feel threatening. It felt like Pinhead was still just gonna stand there.
Well, it's strange because if the whole idea of like speaking to them and like calling like the Leviathan starts merging their worlds, that's one thing it is happening, but you don't realize till the end, and they don't. It's like the things I want explained aren't explained, and the things I don't need to see are shown to me, and it's like the opposite of what I want. Like. I don't need certain things, and it's like I want to know more about that. And
it's like I said, it's missed opportunity. If I were to give it a rating, because I'd like to say I would say 5.8. I'm not quite giving it a 6, but I think it's a. Here's the thing. I guess it kind of depends on your investment in the whole franchise.
We have way more of an investment into it.
But I feel like casual, because this, like I said, it kind of feels like teen slashery to a degree, and mainly because of the characters that I don't care about in it. But if you were just going into it wanting to watch a new horror movie, you kind of knew who Pinhead was, but you never really saw the originals, and you were to sit down and watch this movie, you're probably gonna like it. So with that being said, like. In order to conclude, like, you have to give your rating. I gave it a 5.8. Also, the question is, what do they need to do moving forward to make it more appealing to people that maybe have a little bit more investment like we do, or sort of... How do they find that balance between fandom and, you know, people who are kind of relatively new to the franchise as a whole. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it's kind of the big challenge that you have to do, going into making the next one. And I don't know, maybe they've already shot the next one. I don't know. I have to look this up. I have no idea.
I think the movies do definitely benefit from that back-to-back-to-back shooting, because then you don't leave the room for the reshoots and the sitting around like, oh, maybe we should change this and that. And I think that is better if they could, but sometimes they can't. Actors have different commitments and whatever. But I would give the movie 6.5. I think, honestly, like, and this is the weird thing that I would suggest, like, honestly, if you're gonna do the framework of, like, the rich guy or whatever, do a prequel. Show him throwing the parties and doing the sacrifices and how he got
the thing. Yeah.
Like, go back.
That'd be cool.
Like, go back and show him building the house. Maybe that's the plan. If that's the plan, I would be totally on board for that, and it would really enhance the first one, because they'd be like, him finding out how to, like, protect the house and keep them out, and, like, what thing he used for that and all that, and, like, you could get into the things that we feel like are missing. And
there's guts, there's content here. There's just no blood flow throughout this, the guts and the veins and all that stuff. The structure is there. You're just not getting any flow. Like, to me, the flow and the pacing and the structure of the movie was kind of strange. There are aspects of it that we liked, and I think there is something there. It's not complete garbage like some people are saying. I don't think you could even remotely categorize it as garbage, but it's just, to me, it just sort of stuck in between mid and pushing, like, okay, I could watch this again.
It's so hard to balance something and make everybody happy, and I do think if it was a show, it would be way easier, because you could, like, Game of Thrones, you get to see the nudity, the sex, the violence and stuff, and like in Showtime, they do that as well, and, like, they could show you more of that. But
You'd have more time for character development too. You don't have to rush through character development in an hour and a half.
The whole goriness of it is why I think it also went out on streaming, because I think nowadays that's a very hard thing to market to people, because a lot of what you see in the theater now is, like, really big budget, like, superhero movies, really big, like, kids movies, because those are the most bankable movies right now. And I wish it was different, and maybe we'll see things change, but yeah, I think there was good things about this, and I hope that if they do make another one, like, maybe they will explain a lot of this stuff and it'll make it better.
Like I said, yeah,
there's
it's just one movie.
Potential for that.
Could be a thing with the sequel is way better, and this is just the groundwork. It might not be the strongest groundwork that I would, want to bank on, but I don't think the next one is, like, immediately doomed. I think that you still have a chance to sort of redeem and make this a stronger base that could, be 6 films in this franchise with the same people. Like, who knows? I mean, just see how far you can take it. But the deeper and deeper you dig into the lore of why some Cenobites are there, maybe talk about, who they were in life and how. Because what makes the lore so cool is you're normally tortured in a special way that relates to you. I don't really think there's much else to say about it other than, it's okay for what it is. It's
okay to like it.
It's okay to love it. Oh my gosh.
Like,
there's people that just absolutely love it. Like, again, I totally see where people will love it. I totally see where people will just kind of like it. And I totally see why people will think, it's not really for me. As far as, like, hating it, that's a little bit more difficult to see, because I kind of feel like at that point you're hating on it just to hate on it, which you never want to do with anything. But
yeah, and there's plenty. There's so many movies that, like, I like, that I just like to watch, that they're bad, but you just, like, there's parts of it that you like, and everybody has those.
I think Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo is one of the greatest comedies of all time, in my opinion. And I mean, most people
I've read all of, like, the Anne Rice, like, Interview with the Vampire. I've read Queen of the Damned, and I still love the Queen of the Damned movie anyway.
Yeah.
It's so, like, off from it, but I just love it.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I think that
Yeah.
concludes that.
And let us
it's
know
just-
what you guys think, and we'd love to hear everybody's thoughts, because I haven't heard, what a lot of other people think about this movie that have seen it.
I
Like,
have a couple
haven't.
friends, but I don't know. Maybe, and there might be a lot of people that know way more about maybe why they went in a certain direction than I do.
True, and maybe we missed something, because we didn't get to put the subtitles on, and we had to, and it was a little quiet in the beginning, so maybe we missed a couple things. I don't know. So if there's anything we missed or something, tell us that too, because that could, sometimes that changes.
I love clarification. I don't look at it. I don't take any of that maliciously. So
I want it. I want it here. I want more stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, just let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye, guys.